Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Kevin and Andrew, for the invitation, and the Marine Money team. It's an honor. We are actually going to talk about something quite crucial for the shipbuilding industry. That's the combination of how to be able to raise capital in such a capital-intensive industry. I've been in China now for more than 20 years. We have our office here in Shanghai for 20 years. Initially, when I started coming with our international owners, the only issue was the quality of the ships that we were going to build back then in China. Debt financing was very easy to be raised by the main banks, either in Purus or in London or any other shipping center back then. 10 years later, or less than that, we started having syndicated loans combination between Chinese and international banks. And now the power has shifted in China and generally in Asia. And we see more and more of our projects being financed here. Our panel is Mr. Gustav Sannem, Vice President, Finance and Deputy CFO of Odfjell. Then we have Christian Nolting, Head of Treasury and Banking at Purus. Knut Mathiassen, Managing Director of Ocean Aid Consulting. And Gerry Zolotas, Executive Director of Eurofin Group. Gentlemen, I would like you to introduce a little bit yourselves, what you do as in this sector, please. Let's start with Gustav.
Hello. First of all, thanks to have me here. I think the last time I was here was 2019, slightly before COVID. It's good to be back and good to see you. Also to mention, I'm not Gustav, I'm Christian. I just realized maybe we switch, I don't know, just to keep it simple. And I work for Purus. In my previous job, I was a banker. So I've seen financing of different kind of vessels. I've worked with Sinashore, with China Exim, with Chinese leasing companies, with European banks, with US banks. And I joined Purus about 2 years ago. We're focusing on low carbon emission vessels. And we operate a fleet of largely gas carriers and offshore wind vessels. And yeah, my role is very, very simple. First, I have to take care of our important lending relationships and financing relationships. And second to this is to take care of the treasury function of the group.
Now, so my name is Gustav Sannem. I work for Odfjell Tankers. We're a chemical tanker owner-operator, headquartered in Bergen, Norway. We're also stock listed in Oslo Stock Exchange. We operate around 70 chemical tankers, and we're a fully integrated company, meaning we do the technical management, we do the crewing, we do we have the ownership of about 50 of the 70 vessels that we operate, and we do the full commercial management. I've been involved in shipbuilding and financing of vessels in China for 10 years from Odfjell and some previous employers.
Yeah, hi, Knut Mathiassen. I'm also an ex-banker with various Norwegian and international banks. I've been based in Dubai for the last 12 years. And I deal with a number of ship owners, not only in the Middle East, but also in the Nordics, and increasingly with the green transportation in mind, and that leads on to sustainability and ESG policies of companies. And compatriot in Odfjell here, I think is a very good example how this can be done and financed. And green finance will follow green initiatives and a clear-cut ESG policy. And it's interesting to see how China is sometimes taking a lead in this, but there's still a long way to go, and this is what we are going to talk about here also.
Ni hao. I'm Gerry Zolotas of the Eurofin Group. Just to give a background of the company, I've been there for 15 years about, but the company's been around since 1984. Since then, we have raised about $30 billion of debt via banks, leasing companies, JOLCO structures, or even debt funds to ship owners from all over the world. Primarily based in Europe, with offices in London, Athens, and Lausanne, but we've also had a presence in Singapore for 15 years. And as a company, we have always been there to try and help ship owners build new relationships with lenders from all over the world.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now that there is the first question, which is the foundation question of our session. Actually, I would like all of you to have your comments. The question is, raising capital is a critical aspect of vessel construction. How do international owners typically secure financing for their projects in China, and what financing options are available? And how important is the partnership with local Chinese banks and financial institutions in the process of raising capital for vessel constructions? And then what advantages such kind of a partnership offer? Let's start with you, Gerry.
Well, obviously, building in China is pretty much day-to-day now. The ships that are constructed here are very high quality. And obviously, building ships is also a very costly affair, as we all know, especially the larger ships. Generally, ship owners from all over the world will finance their ships from either the local banks or banks within, let's say, their continent. Primarily in Europe, you have a lot of European banks who do a lot of the lending to the ship owners, whether that is covered by ECA out in China or Korea or Japan, or whether that is just direct commercial lending. Of course, in the past 8-9 years, Chinese leasing companies have become a lot more dominant in the ship financing space, which is obviously why we're also here to talk about it. And the reality is that the huge advantage to dealing with these companies in China is that the sums of money that they can do are huge, bigger than mostly the lenders in the West can do. They can do big tickets, they can do high leverage, and they can do it at a very reasonably priced point, which I think is what the competitive advantage of Chinese leasing and finance from China is at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. Anything to add on what Gerry said, Knut?
Yeah, I think one of the issues that ship owners face when placing orders in China is pre-delivery funding, and I think that has become a problem, surprisingly, as the house banks in Europe have pulled out of ship finance. It's all been replaced by Chinese leasing. The pre-delivery funding is something that Chinese leasing companies will do, that in addition to what you said, Gerry, will give quite a competitive advantage in many cases, depending on how shipyards' installments look like. If it's front-heavy, the shipyard will need either a lot of working capital, or if it's back-heavy, I think it's like 60-40. You have a playing field that opens up more to the international banks, but pre-delivery funding from Chinese leasing companies is very helpful.
Thank you. How about yourself, Gustav? Anything to add?
Well, second your summary from the start, so 10 years ago, we would probably look more to the European banking market when we built over here. Refund guarantees was a major issue. I think refund guarantees are still important. We've seen a shift there from kind of the local branches providing the guarantees to more the larger corporate-backed or headquartered guaranteed refund guarantees. That's important development. But today we can draw financing from both our banking group, but also obviously from the Chinese lessors. We have experience with both, and there are definitely some advantages from the Chinese leasing market when we're building vessels here. I can give you just one example of our latest new build series. We took delivery of vessels during COVID, and some of these vessels were backed by financial leases. Because of the restrictions at the time, we had very big problems getting crew in to actually take delivery and sail the vessels out. So we were facing, delayed delivery. The fact that we had a strong lessor who had a really close relationship with the yard enabled us to get a delayed delivery and really close that deal within only a matter of days. We would not have been able to do that if it was a European bank involved in the financing, or even worse, a European lessor actually owning the asset. So there are clear advantages, both pre-signing contracts, but also pre-delivery of having the Chinese lessors and the Chinese yards in close cooperation.
And how about yourself, Christian?
Thank you. I think to start with, I mean, I came to Asia in 2008, and it was dominated by European banks to a large extent. I saw the development of shipbuilding and Chinese leasing and funding sources in China, which I think has evolved tremendously over the time. As Purus, we look at diversification, that's important, but Chinese leasing and Chinese funding sources remains an important part for ourselves. I think at the forefront, it is always, to some extent, and I'm a treasurer, it is ultimately the product and the vessel which is important. I do think there's good quality in China. So when we come to financing those vessels, we have what China has achieved is to find diversification of funding sources. You will have China Exim, you have Sinosure Chinese leasing, but you also have international banks financing Chinese vessels because it's good product. So it's quite a diversified funding sources you can access. And as that part, it remains very, very important. When it comes to advantages, and just to narrow it down to a few, I wouldn't call it advantages. I mean, I think in all aspects where we do business, relationship is important. So that's also for the Chinese leasing market or with our relationships we have here. But second to it, I think it is a relatively pragmatic discussion you can have. It is a very pragmatic and direct discussion, and generally also a very, very fast decisioning process compared to other parts of the world.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think we covered this question. The only comment that I have on the basis of my experience as a broker, I see a kind of hole, in a way, on Chinese financing when it comes to small and medium-sized ship-owning companies. Not only in Greece, predominantly in Greece, but also in other parts of the world, we have traditional shipping families of generations who do not have really the holding structures that tick the boxes on the financing in China, and they do not have 20 ships, let's say, or more, when really the gates open in the Chinese ship financing world. We have extremely healthy and robust shipping companies that are unable, though, due to their kind of smaller size, to get finance here in China. I think this is the only forefront that China has to work, because there are a lot of small, medium-sized owners out there and extremely healthy and willing to take part in this transformation of the fleet with the new buildings and the new fuels that we're gonna have very soon.
Dimitri, if I may quickly just add something on that point of the small owners. The reality is that everybody wants to do big is beautiful. It's easier, bigger tickets, you get your quota out for the year a lot faster. This makes sense. The advantage of smaller owners is, of course, that they are going to be less argumentative when it comes to margin, which I think everybody would like to keep at a decent level anyway. So if Chinese leasing companies wanted to keep their profitability at a higher level, and also with clients that, as you said, are very respectable companies, then there's a lot of opportunity to do smaller tickets, but at a higher margin. Of course, in Greece specifically, you have the Greek banks who are already competing quite aggressively on the smaller companies.
Yes, but because I had lunch with 2 Greek bankers last week, okay, I mean, they're extremely scared of Chinese financing. And why don't Chinese banks take advantage of it? I mean, certainly the flexibility, like you gentlemen mentioned about pre-delivery costs and things like that. I mean, the Greek banks are not really fond of this. I mean, they want the post-delivery and easy way of financing. Let's move on to the second question with Christian. How does sourcing finance for vessel construction in China differ from other parts of the world? And what are the unique opportunities and challenges associated with raising capital in China?
I mean, I think I commented on some of the advantages already, and I think a few have been mentioned: bigger tickets, easy decisioning, so I don't want to repeat it. I do think that a challenge or an opportunity is, which we see is, there's sometimes a distance between the Far East and the West in terms of relationship, just because of offices, locations. I mean, we are based in Singapore. I come to China regularly now, so we can build this relationship, the face-to-face meetings. So I do see that this is probably sometimes potentially a challenge, because it's important to know each other, right? Relationship is important. So I do think that might be a challenge, which is an opportunity at the same time, right? To actually bridge this gap. And I know that a lot of leasing companies move to Europe and see the clients, and also clients come over, but it's nice to have actually a location close by. So I think that's probably an opportunity.
Anything to add, Gerry?
I would generally agree with Christian for everything that he said. It's absolutely important to build a relationship, and the challenge is often the distance, the time zone. Often having a local partner is a good way of bridging that gap if you're not able to travel regularly to China. Obviously, if you're based in Singapore, that is a lot easier. The other challenge, I would say, which is quite predominant, and I would also say also speaks to what we talked about just before, Dimitris, is that even though the Chinese leasing companies have expertise and have certainly developed expertise in the debt side with ship owners from the West, because it is a foreign market to them, and because they need guidance from trusted people from the West or even locally, they need to build up more their knowledge of the local markets that they're investing in order to really identify which the right counterparties to do business with are. So the smaller companies which don't have the big balance sheets, which is very respectable, they are unknown to the Chinese leasing companies, which is to be expected. So I think that's a challenge for the smaller companies specifically.
Yes, thank you. And the only minor comment I want to add is that apart from being happy to see steady faces in steady financial institutions, the other challenge is that it seems that the higher Chinese corporate staff sometimes moves from institution to institution. So you have to keep track with, as you said, with your visits, where they are surfacing and whom they are representing. But I hope that it will be better in the future.
I think international bankers move around quite a lot as well. But no, I think Chinese lessors, they've done a tremendous job being approachable and adopting to international documentation. I think they've done a great job there. I would love to see more of the Chinese banks actually entering into the international shipping market. I think that's a strength that the international banking market has with they can play the different structures. Here it's leasing or nothing. So more mortgage structures would be welcomed by us for sure.
Sure. It's a kind of feeling that the owner wants instead of the leasing, and this is a hurdle that I have also with our clients when I propose the Chinese leasing. Gustav, I mean, we've seen also earlier on, I mean, when we know all of us that now China is the #1 nation as a shipbuilding power. What makes it really competitive for vessel construction in terms of cost, quality, and infrastructure? And how does China's extensive shipbuilding infrastructure and skilled workforce contribute to the attractiveness of the country as a destination for vessel construction?
Well, I think it was mentioned at the panel earlier today, but we as an international owner, we second many of the points that were made. You have to differentiate, I think, between standardized tonnage and more specialized tonnage. On the standard tonnage side, price is probably the major competitive advantage at the moment, together with available slots. I think China's probably been better the last few years finding or bringing back idle capacity, managing to find new slots, than perhaps Japan and Korea. And you have been very successful in securing the dual fuel orders. When you look more at the specialty segment, like we're building stainless steel parcel tankers, very specialized tonnage, then I think the major competitive advantage that the Chinese shipbuilders have is that they will build the vessels. They are not focusing only on their own vessel designs. So when we go to Japan or Korea, then we're being offered the shipyard's design. But in China, we can build actually the vessels that we want to operate. So and that's a major advantage, and it's possible because of the first of all, you now have a lot of experienced designers here based in China, and the whole Chinese shipbuilding cluster it's become very complete over these last few years. You have the designers, they are experienced. You have the suppliers that now are stable with their quality. So makers is not an issue anymore. We're building in China, and neither is quality, because you have a very experienced workforce and very experienced subcontractor base. And combine that with class, combine that with financing, it makes a very powerful cluster, and that is driving quality up and keeping new building prices below the competing markets. So it's no wonder really that China now accounts for 50% of all new orders, and even higher than that on the more novel technologies and the dual fuels.
Yes, thank you. And what I need to raise the attention is that also China has been the bravest from the other nations, because we see that they were the first to jump in, for instance, installing electronic engines in the ships. Imagine that we have ships 2011, 2012 built having the electronic engines in China, whereas if we have to go to Japan because of their style, as you mentioned, we have to go probably to post-2014 to start seeing electronic engines. And now we saw with even with Gerry and the shipyards, they were the first to adopt the new technologies and the new theories. And especially having all these endless engineers and design offices, I think that they are true champions also now on something that they were lacking, as I said 20 years ago when we started. Knut, a question for you, please. Environmental sustainability is a growing concern in the shipping industry, and we know it and we saw it. How is China addressing sustainability and green initiatives in vessel construction, and how does this align with international owners' goals?
Yes, thanks. Well, if we start with the Poseidon principles for banks. Last time I looked at 35 banks signed up to the Poseidon principles, but no Chinese banks yet, no leasing companies. But that doesn't mean China is not aware and are doing their bit to decarbonize, because that's what it's all about. Certainly seen from a Nordic point of view. I think shipyards will build to the specification of the ship owners, and if, like Odfjell, will lay down the specification with all the green elements that you can choose now, they will build it, and they will do it very well. But I think also the shipyards, on one hand, as we saw earlier, have very efficient designs now, and it's good to see the focus on fuel efficiency. But let's also not forget the integrators, I call them, the Wärtsiläs and the MANs who are rolling out very fuel efficient dual fuel engines now that are easily adapted into the propulsion trains at the shipyards. And certainly for, say, the short sea sector, smaller vessels, you have electric solutions here that easily can reduce fuel consumption by even up to 50%. That doesn't really apply to deep sea shipping yet, but batteries are coming also for larger vessels, I think, and I think China will be not ahead of the pack here, but will certainly be very flexible in adopting these solutions, green solutions. But again, it's if it starts with the financing, if it's a green directive from the financing, it doesn't really dictate that ship owners need to go green, but there's certainly a pressure. And if the reward is competitive financing, I think ship owners and the shipyards will follow.
Thank you. Yes, we need competitive financing on this kind of brave ideas on the green ships. And I think China is having the balance between what's ideal for the planet and what organizations are planning until 2050, and what's doable. And they have a pragmatic approach to that. Question for you, Gerry. In light of global sustainability goals, how does vessel construction in China align with efforts to promote environmentally friendly practices and technologies?
Thank you, Dimitris. First of all, I'd like to clarify, I'm obviously not a technical director. I can use a screwdriver, but I can't talk about ship designs or about general technological practices specifically. I can speak from the perspective of a lot of my clients who have brainwashed me into thinking like they do. For the most part, it doesn't really matter. We need to build vessels. We need to replace all the tonnage. This is not going to change. This is going to be an ongoing concern till the end of time. Old ships need to be replaced. Anything new is cleaner. Anything new is more economical, more ecological. So the specific practices and technologies are going to continue to develop and evolve and improve. The fuels will get cleaner. The ships will become more streamlined. More things will be added on board, which will make a difference, whether it's a MEVIS duct, which decreases vibrations and saves a tiny bit of fuel, or whether it's just burning LNG, burning methanol, burning ammonia. These are all going to come no matter what. A ship owner needs a ship to do their business. It is unfortunate that the onus falls on the ship owner to be cleaner when they are not in charge of the design, the fuel, the technology, the engine. But unfortunately, it seems to have fallen there. I think it's going back to the finance part of our discussion. I think it's important for leasing companies, for banks, for everybody involved in the finance sector to continue to finance not old ships, but older ships. 5-10-year-old ships replace 20-25-year-old ships. This is a necessity, but it's become unattractive to finance the older ships. How do you expect a substantial number of small ship owners, which make up a big portion of the fleet, to continue to do business, to continue to renew their tonnage if you will not finance them? These need to be replaced. The old ships, and there's still ships that I think are 30, 40 years old in the water, they need to be replaced. And obviously the 20-year-old ships need to be replaced. And again, 10 years from now, there will be more 20-year-old ships that need to be replaced. So I think in terms of, does it matter where you build or what you build? No, that's going to keep developing. But I think it's the only way that happens is if we continue to finance the ships and we continue to finance research into new technology.
Thank you, thank you. A question to all of you. As the maritime industry strives for greener and more sustainable options, what innovative technologies and practices are being employed in China's shipbuilding sector to reduce environmental impact? How do these advancements affect the financing landscape of new vessels? And can we identify specific financial incentives and opportunities for stakeholders investing in environmentally friendly shipbuilding projects? Of course, we saw earlier on some ways of the new shipbuilding environmental solutions, let's say, but we'll have to see it from a financial perspective. So, Christian, with you.
You asked for financial viability, right? That was so. It's very, very broad question. It's very, very big actually, because ultimately we operate a lot of different kind of technology, carbon capture system, fully electric, dual fuels. So it's available also in China. It's constructive dialogues for building those vessels. When it comes to financial viability, what I always say is, in the first place, a ship owner, and what you just referred to is, it has to be commercially viable, right? Because we ultimately need to make a commercial return for our shareholders. And finding the right technology and the right clients and the right partners to actually make a commercial viable project, that's a challenge nowadays, and an opportunity again. So when it comes to financial viability, I think when you look at just how do we make our return, is one is operating expenses, being energy efficient, use energy devices, try to optimize your operations, reduce, have energy savings. That's of course, which helps you in the first step to reduce cost. And then financial viability, it is ultimately at the moment, my view that access to sustainable finance or people looking at more low emission solutions is more an allocation. It's more that people look at it, or financiers, banks, it is a good asset, we would like to help, and we would like to actually finance it. Does it necessarily lead to financial incentives? I think that's what people are looking at, and I think that's a transition which we haven't made so far fully. That's my personal view.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, when we speak to our European banks, the only thing almost that we speak about is sustainability and the energy transition, sustainable finance. That's the major topic, and then credit risk is the second major topic. But that's everything that we talk about with our European banks. We're starting to have the same discussions with our Chinese lessors, which is very positive. But it's a major topic for us and Europe, and I think the accessibility to finance, that is a competitive advantage, and at least in Europe it's being driven by ESG. I lost my second point there. I'll come back to that. No, it's sorry. It's on the financing of older assets. Completely agree. A ship is not a ship. An owner is not an owner. It's very specific what ship type and where it's going to be used, and what trades we as owners use our vessels. Chemical tankers, we built them to last for 30 years. And we can operate them on our platform until 30 years. The fact that we struggle to find financing, or we don't, but a lot of owners struggle to find financing on vessels that are older than 15 years it's a little bit ridiculous, because those are not the vessels that you need to replace. The vessels you need to replace are the ones that are older than 30 years. Just 2 weeks ago, we refitted a 20-year-old chemical tanker at Shanxi shipyard with air lubrication. So it's a major investment on a 20-year-old vessel. We expect that investment will pay back over, say, 3 to 4 years. But we will keep that vessel in our fleet for at least 5 years. So it makes sense. To improve the energy efficiency and lower our own fuel costs, so even on a 20-year-old tanker. So it's very specific, owner to owner or shipping segment to shipping segment.
2 more minutes. Oh my God. Okay, then.
Just a quick point from my side. I think banks are generally reluctant to take technology risk for new buildings, and if you add all the bells and whistles available, rotors, sails, air lubrication, dual fuel, methanol ready, also the ship gets quickly 30-40% more expensive than and banks will not follow. They will stay at 70% loan to value as a conventional ship. And that is a problem.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's absolutely a problem. The financing amount doesn't go up just because the cost of everything additional goes up, which is a shame because there is obviously a big push for more ESG-focused financing. Like I said, it's about replacing tonnage. A new VLCC is cleaner than a VLCC from 20 years ago, and it's cleaner than a VLCC from 3 years ago. So as long as we all, as an industry, as a sector, as an energy sector, strive to be cleaner, eventually everything will come. But asking somebody to invest in a dual-fuel LNG carrier today, dual-fuel VLCC with LNG as a second fuel today, and 5 years from now they tell you, oh, LNG is not clean anymore. You have to be burning ammonia. So I've just spent $30 million extra on a ship that is already 20% above prices it was 3 years ago, and now my ship is no longer attractive. That's a problem, and that is something that I think lenders have to come to terms with, as well as regulators, in order to meet somewhere in the middle with ship owners. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with you. The only thing I need to add is that in order really to hit the targets on time and not to move the goalposts further, we need to incentivize the owners somehow on these huge costs, because no owner really wants to wait for 10 or 15 years to get his money back on these innovative ideas right now. And we had these issues also even on the other side of the shipping world, which is recycling. Nobody wanted really to scrap his ship on a green yard because they were getting far less money than the dirty way. And you need to give incentives, because at the end of the day, it's business for them, and they want to stretch their dollar to the maximum. Thank you very much for the time. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.